Tom E. Curran normally joins us every Tuesday at high noon. Tommy Tuesday. We're calling him Tommy Hump Day today at high noon. Curran, your favorite Ray Crittenden, Ray Lucas. I'm trying to think of some Rays over the years. You got to have a favorite Ray, I would imagine.
Those are good Rays. I was going to go boxing for you with Ray Leonard.
Oh, nice.
Ray Boom Boom Mancini, and of course Sugar Ray Robinson.
Nice.
All good Rays.
All real good ones. Sugar Ray the band, of course, is one that's very much overlooked as well. You were there.
The bar. Get it?
Yeah, I did. You were there front and center yesterday, peppering Stefon Diggs, Steph Diggs, as you like to call him, peppering him with questions yesterday. What did you think of that whole, I don't want to call it spectacle, that whole scene, the way he handled it, the way Mike Vrabel kind of answered things earlier in the day? What did you think of that yesterday?
I think it was interesting to hear Diggs be what he represented as being transparent, tried to be polite, understood the questions were coming, had a party line that he was going to adhere to. As we talked about a little on Early Edition last night, there wasn't a massive amount of contrition. He wasn't going to open a vein and say, I'm sorry I did this, and besmirch the name of the Patriots. It wasn't like Gronk after the B.B. Jones jersey. It was more, we'll keep it between us. I talked to Mike, and we're going to keep it between us. But, it was interesting when you listen to him, and he mentioned a couple times that I'm a 10-year veteran. I understand how this stuff works. He's probably looking at it and saying, okay, so what did I do? What exactly did I do? You got nothing on me, so it's a mountain out of a molehill. Sorry it got out there. Let's move on. And I'm sure the Patriots feel that way with some trepidation and would walk away from a conversation like that and say, I hope that's it.
Now, in 5 weeks from now when training camp opens up, the next time, whatever it is, Steph Diggs talks again, do you think questions like you guys had for him yesterday are done, or is there a little bit more, like another run at it, or was this sort of getting out in front of it, kind of putting that behind everybody?
No, I think that settled it. I mean, there was no charge. There was no police presence. There was a video of a guy with what we presume was some kind of a mood enhancer. But there's no smoking gun to say it should continue on. We asked, he answered, move on to the next event. Hopefully the Patriots, I'm sure, are hoping that there are no next events. But I would imagine that we're done with the pontoon boat.
Mm-hmm. You asked what's in the bag. I think Keefe brought something up interesting earlier today, Curran.
Thank you.
What if he actually answered it? I know you assumed he wasn't going. What were you bracing for him potentially in any way answering that? That would have been wild.
No, I didn't think he'd answer it, but I mean, he could have gone with him. It was just chopped up tums. You're out there on the pontoon. It gets rocky. You have to take some seasick pills, whatever. Yeah. No, I didn't expect him to, but it was, really incumbent on us to just ask the question, because had there not been a little baggie there would have been no discussion. It's just a guy on a boat during Memorial Day with a bunch of girls.
What do you think Mike Vrabel, or how Mike Vrabel is feeling about the Steph Diggs experience thus far? He made it pretty clear yesterday that he wants everybody at everything. And so Diggs is sort of the face of that. He wasn't the only one that missed some of the optional stuff, but how do you think Mike Vrabel's handling this so far?
I think good. He's not pretending to be over the moon about the situation, but he's also not going on in there like a hanging judge and saying, we can't have this. Because, again, if you're a player, if you're a 20-something, if you're looking at this situation, you would say, what exactly did he do? And we can all logically surmise that it was whatever, and have our own levels of offense. But I think that if Mike flips out over something that, again, you just don't know what it was, there's no police involvement, then, be a little bit downcast about it and then move on to the football aspect, because the football aspect to me continues to be fascinating. And you guys played the Giardi question about whether or not he's passed the physical. And that dynamic I see being fascinating, because you have Diggs saying, I'm a dog on a leash. I'm ready to go. He's participating in a way I didn't expect him to 7 months after the surgery. He's probably dying to get his physical done, be cleared, ready to go, and start having his money hit his account. And the Patriots, can always say, we're doing it for your own good. We're not going to have a physical done until you're ready to go. It's, you're fine. We're fine. Take our time here. But they can also, at the same time, say, let's give him the physical as late as possible and just make sure that he's completely on board. Whereas Diggs is probably sitting there going, look, I'm ready. Can I have my physical, please? So I do see that being, unless they've come to some understanding that I don't know about as to what date they're going to have the physical on, it could be something that would be under the surface, a little push-pull.
Interesting. So you think he might be agitated by them holding him back? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like to use a word, he's not necessarily loving that they're holding him back.
No, I don't know that because I don't know what questions that they would have. But if he wants a physical and wants to be cleared and is indicating he's full go, or to this point he is, and I don't know. But I'm just saying the potential exists unless they've addressed it. Unless it's been addressed. Look, if I owed you $50 and said I would give it to you if you did a certain thing, and you were prepared fully to do that certain thing, and I kept putting it off, you'd eventually say, can we just do this so I can get my 50?
Mm-hmm. Let alone $4 million.
Yeah.
You want to up the number. A question Jones asked earlier, and he and I disagreed on it, so you can break the tie. Who needs who more? The Patriots needing Steph Diggs or Steph Diggs needing the Patriots?
Patriots needing Steph Diggs.
I agree. I disagree.
Yeah. To me, it's the Patriots needing Diggs because Diggs would find another home. Might not find it at $12 million a year in the contract that he got, and it might put a little bit of a strike against him as he moves around the league with a failed physical. But to me, I think the Patriots, need him more in that they're searching high and low for a number one receiver. If they don't have Steph Diggs, your number one receiver is probably Demario Douglas, who's more of a slot. He would be a number 3 on a good wide receiver team. So to me, it's the Patriots need Diggs to fulfill the things that they're trying to put in place here.
How typical is it that we get to this point, and we agree to disagree on who has the leverage? How typical is it that we see a player here where in between minicamp and training camp and there's still a pending physical? Is that more typical than I would realize? Because I would tend to think a lot of times physicals are done when you sign the contract, no?
No, I think it's much more prevalent because you have to be cleared for different aspects of trying to make the team. You see a bunch of guys get, released failed physical toward the end of training camp. So no, I think it's much more prevalent. A guy trying to come back from an injury and he hasn't been able to get on the field. He's still getting paid, but he hasn't been cleared yet to play. I don't think it's exceptional. I mean, there's a difference between being cleared to run around with a penny on at 80% and being able to put helmet, shoulder pads on and take every rep of practice, full contact. And it does make sense that there would be a different physical or a different set of standards that you have to pass for that. Now, again, they're not real open about this because of, they'll hide behind HIPAA and everything else. But it's not something that they're delving into when we ask about Steph Diggs. It's been difficult to find out exactly what the situation is. But my presumption would be sign the contract pending a physical. You put the physical in the contract specifically. You put language in it that says until you pass it, you get nothing and like it. Then to me, that might be a little unusual. But still, that physical, I think every player in any kind of rehab condition would have to pass eventually to play.
What'd you make of Mike Vrabel the other day talking up Efton Chisholm? Pretty good, the undrafted wide receiver who we've talked about a few times on the show. And then when asked about Kyle Williams, their third-round pick who had a big touchdown catch, just be like, yeah, you gotta make those plays.
It's very obvious when you go to these OTAs that Chisholm is really good. It's really obvious. And May said that the other day when I asked him about Henderson, Williams, and Chisholm. He mentioned how good the other two were, and then he mentioned Chisholm. He goes, he's got probably 50 catches in these OTAs. And when Vrabel said yesterday the most important thing that these players can do at that position is build trust with the quarterback, and you can tell that when they throw to him. They're throwing to the kid over and over and over again, and it's not just because he's there. It's because he's there, and they look to him. They check. All right, well, Where's Chisholm? Boom, he's right where he's supposed to be. That's a catch. He catches it religiously. I don't know if I've seen a drop from him. And then he scurries up the field. So I don't think one indicates a disappointment with Kyle Williams, but I do think that when you just watch Chisholm move, the speed with which he gets out of his breaks is unique to everybody except for Diggs. He's not faster by any stretch, but his body control and his ability to stop and start is better than any other player at the wide receiver, and that includes Polk, that includes Williams, that includes Baker. Bourne's pretty good too, but he's better at that than anybody but except for Diggs, who, even on a bad knee, was pretty good getting in and out.
So something jumped out to me from Vrabel yesterday beyond the Diggs stuff, and it was the way he talked about Chisholm versus the way he talked about Kyle Williams. Keefe pointed out, I mean, there's a reason to do that. Chisholm is undrafted. You want to keep him motivated by gassing him up. Kyle Williams, day 2 pick. There's a lot of draft capital invested there. So maybe you want to keep him wanting more and wanting to prove more. So maybe there is a method to that madness. But I read into Vrabel yesterday talking up Chisholm and also kind of sounding lukewarm at best about Kyle Williams making a 40-yard catch down the field. Did you read into that at all?
I think that he was trying less to downgrade Williams' play on that particular down and more to just caution us as media to say they can't, as defensive backs right now, jump up and try and swat the ball away and then end up with a 4-car pileup on the goal line after everyone's running full speed because we're just not supposed to be going to the ground. So he beat them down the field. The defensive backs didn't allow him to beat them down the field, but I think Vrabel's point is they're not going to challenge at the catch point the way they would normally. It was less about the Williams thing and more about just reminding us what we're watching is not necessarily what might happen in a competitive situation.
And even with, those limitations for the defense, it does seem like the offense has progressed, right? It started out, we were talking about that Drake May 4-pick performance. Then it was a little bit better, cleaned up the picks, but the completion percentage was low. And it seems like each day things have gotten a little bit better for the offense.
Until yesterday.
Oh.
They did a lot of third down. They did a lot of red zone. They did a lot of defensively, giving a whole mess of different looks. Guys mugging up in the line of scrimmage. And I think that presented some confusion problems and protection problems that I think are actually good for them to see before they go into this break before training camp. I would put good money on the fact that the first week of training camp, we will be talking about, why does the offense look so bad? And it's because the defense is losing its mind not being able to fully participate. And, they're getting to the quarterback and around the quarterback, and then you see a throw downfield that May gets credit for on all of our statistical compilations as, well, it's another completion, and it probably wouldn't have been. So I would think that when training camp starts and it's more competitive and there is contact, they're going to have the edge pretty well. But that's not to downgrade the improvement we saw over the 3 weeks of OTAs while they were out there. They got much better all the way through.
Curran, do you expect a change to the roster between now and training camp, like a significant change? And the reason I ask, you asked and had a back and forth yesterday with Vrabel, I would imagine about TJ Watt. I would imagine about Terry McLaurin. Who else? Trey Hendrickson. They were linked by Jeremy Fowler to Rashad Bateman. They were one of the teams that inquired about Rashad Bateman. Do you think we see a significant change between now and training camp to the roster?
I think that they would be open to doing it. I just don't know if any of those individuals are in a position where the teams that they're on would be willing to move them during the summer. They're all good players. They're all high-ticket players. We can have that. It's an interesting conversation. The Patriots have $60 million in cap space still. It's, they didn't get Chris Godwin, so they got Steph Diggs, but he's not nearly as expensive as Chris Godwin would have been. So they still have that money there. They can roll $60 million into next year and have another crap ton of money to spend in free agency. And maybe guys more want to come here so that they can actually get rid of the money. But it's still sitting there. You still have the opportunity to go get a big-ticket item if you want to. What does loom down the road for the team in general is contracts for Christian Gonzalez. Believe it or not, you can already start thinking about a contract for Drake May. So you have to look at these big ticket top 5 picks, or in Gonzalez' case, all pro player at a prime position that are going to command a lot of money. But you do have to at some point spend the money, and I think that they went through the same thing last year. Nobody really wanted to come here. It wasn't a great free agent class, so they re-signed all their own guys, and one by one they're moving on from those guys, or finding those guys are finding themselves further down the depth chart. And I mention that because I look at Anthony Jennings, who I've always thought is a good player and productive, and he's running with the twos at all times, it seems. So it's segued to another point off of what you're talking about. There's a lot of guys on the roster still who seem to be, they were key players last year, who are now being a little bit marginalized. Might change during training camp when they can hit more and do more running game, and maybe we'll see more from them. But that continues to be an interesting thing to watch. But as far as getting a big ticket guy, I think they'd love to, but that whole thing that we always joke about, oh, they were in on him. They were in on him. They were in on him. Are they really in on him? Do they go and balls to the wall to make it happen? Or are they just saying, so what's that cost? And then walking out of the store.
Last thing for me, Tom, I think it was last week. It was like hours before he signed. I was like, Will Campbell hasn't signed. You're like, yeah, it's no big deal. And then he signed right away. Travion Henderson, the second-round pick, also hasn't signed. I know there's been a kind of trend of second-round picks, at least the guys at the very top getting guaranteed contracts. But anything to read in there as we get into the second week of June and still no contract for Henderson?
I don't. I just don't see the same level of contract strife we used to see when the CBA was totally different. I'm sure that Travion Henderson will get done and be on the field at some point. So I wouldn't see that being a looming issue.
Okay.
Could be wrong, but I just don't think it happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. He's Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. He joins us every Tuesday here on Jones and Keefe. Tommy Tuesdays, Tommy Hump Day today. Tom, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right. Tom E. Curran joining us here on Jones and Keefe on WE.